Hey there, young grasshoppers, ninjas, and ninjettes, and welcome back to the Optimize Self Show, the show that's all about helping you rediscover your health, upgrade your fitness, optimize your wellness, all while having fun, kicking ass through lifestyle design. For those of you tuning in for the first time, really the format here is very much Q&A. You know, you keep on asking questions, and I'll keep answering them, or at the very least, attempting to answer them. And really, the best way, the preferable way to ask questions is by going over to optimizeself.ninja and taking the Optimize Self test. And I'll show you what that looks like really quick before we get started here. Let's see, do a little screen share with you. So basically, if you go here to optimizeself.ninja, you'll see the logo at the top, and this is where you can watch the other episodes of the Optimize Self show. We got to think 32 of them after this, 33 that you can watch here. You can also watch them on YouTube if you so choose, and to check out all the mention links. But below that video player, there's this big red orange button that says click here to take the Optimize Self test, ask me a question, and uncover what's holding you back from being your best self. You go ahead and click that button, put your email in there, and click take the test now. And an email will be sent to you with a link to take the Optimize Self test. You'll also be added to the Optimize Self email list where you'll be sent a convenient summary of each and every episode as they are released of the Optimize Self show. Those include timestamps and links for you to easily navigate. All right, so that is the preferred way. The reason being is because the Optimize Self test is a type of self-assessment tool that you can take. And I always find I get better quality questions when people take the test. And basically what you'll be doing by taking the Optimize Self test is helping me gather the information I need to better help you. So essentially, you'll be helping me help you. Something else you can do is simply text me questions to 619-800-2459. Again, that number is 619-800-2459. And you can also leave audio questions for me in the form of a voicemail at that number. All right. And if you're, again, worried that you didn't get that number, I'm going to put it up on a lower thirds display that you'll see throughout the show. So don't worry if you didn't get that written down. Obviously, you can always rewind this, but I'll put it up here in just a little bit. All right. So we got a lot of fun stuff on today's show. Let me actually go back and take this screen sharing off. There we go. You'll see me in just a moment, but just want to share with you some of the topics coming up on today's show. So first off, Bryce and I talk about how his tight leg muscles are contributing to his hip immobility and how both are causing him to suffer from lower back pain and struggle with getting into a deep, a kind of a butt to heels squat position without pain. Then Eric thinks he has tight hip flexors, but is confused about the fact that he doesn't experience any pain while standing and only when he sprints. And, you know, it kind of sounds like Eric and Bryce have something in common there, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And finally, Derek is stuck in hip flexion, which is causing his lumbar disc to herniate. So we go over how herniated discs are like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Definitely going to stay tuned for that one. It's one of my favorites. And actually, one little thing, kind of a catalyst today, something awesome, is Cyrus wins himself something special by sending me a messenger hawk. This is pretty awesome. I've never had anyone do this before. I will share with you how this looks later on in the show, but it's pretty awesome to get a messenger hawk. And for that, I applaud and want to award Cyrus with something. So all that and more coming up on today's show. But before we dive into the topics and answer the questions and all that, I just wanted to take a moment and thank the Optimize Self ninjas and ninjettes. And those are people who either I have worked with or are currently working with via one-on-one sessions, those that keep me on as retainers, or those of you that are a part of the Optimize Self Dojo. And I'll focus a little bit more on that latter one, although, you know, I do offer one-on-one sessions, you know, and I'll say some prices here just to show you the value of the dojo, because that's my favorite thing right now. That's my pride and joy, my project, really what I'm pouring my heart and soul into. So I do offer one-on-one sessions. They usually range anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes, and those are $300 each. I do also offer retainers. And again, you can find all this over at optimizeself.ninja, more toward the bottom of the page. So I won't get into super details with you. I also do offer retainers, those people that want to keep me on as a retainer for themselves and their family. And those range anywhere from $750 a month to $5,000 for an entire year. And those are great, and I love doing that. And I've done one-on-one type of services like that for probably the majority of my professional career and life. I love it. I love working with people one-on-one, whether it be in person or online. But at the beginning of this year, I started something called the Optimized Self Dojo. And the dojo, really what it is there's kind of three parts to it. And I'll quickly go over those with you. And actually, we can find out more. Let me screen share with you guys one more time. Remember where I showed you where to take the Optimized Self test? Well, if you scroll below that, right here, it says continue reading to open the Komodo and take a peek inside the dojo. Scroll below that, and you can start to see all the individual parts, everything that's included inside the Optimized Self Dojo, okay? And then there's all these bonuses underneath here as well. So I will just let that rest right there so you guys can see that. And I won't go over each and every one of those things because that'll take forever. You guys can check that out over at optimizeself.ninja. But there's kind of three parts to the Optimized Self Dojo as I see it. Part one is the accountability / support group. And this is key to success, not only in health, fitness, and wellness, but I think in anything. And that's basically a private Facebook group where your fellow ninjas and ninjettes, there's a built-in accountability and support. If you say you're going to do something or you need help with something, that's what your fellow ninjas and ninjettes, including myself, are there to help you with. And then in addition to that, we do weekly live trainings, also known as Hangouts, every Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, these are basically, whereas on my one-on-one sessions or my retainers, I offer, one-on-one type of attention or work. Well, instead of one-on-one, this is one-on-many. So it's a lot more scalable, but I invite you and other dojo members to come on live with me. And if you're camera shy, you can always do it via text or message or, some type of written format. But I love it when people come on with me, like just this last week, someone from the dojo, Danny, joined me. And, we had a great talk about many different things. And I think that's important because I think the deeper, more meaningful conversations you can have, the better questions you can ask, the better answers you get. And basically, another part of the whole Optimized Self Dojo, the group, is to crowdsource the members' collective knowledge, but more importantly, experience, and then leverage off of it for your own benefit. So those are those weekly live trainings. When you compare it to a one-on-one session, which costs $300, and you're getting that included for a dojo membership, which right now starts at $24 and up. Every membership, the price increases, so that's why I say $24 and up for a one-time fee. You can quickly see it's an amazing deal. It's quite frankly a steal. So the weekly live trainings, those are huge. We have a lot of fun during those as well. And then last but certainly not least, the third part is what I refer to as the Optimized Self Arsenal. And the Optimized Self Arsenal is basically a collection of resources, guides, tutorials, and tools that you can use to help you implement what you learn inside the resources, guides, and tools, to make it simpler, to make it easier and more efficient for you to actually execute on what you learn. And basically, what you'll find inside these resources, guides, and tutorials, this is the most important stuff that I've learned over 13 plus years, spending tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of hours in the, let's call it, making bodies better world, that I share with my one-on-one clients and my retainer clients. So all together, everything added up inside the accountability and support group, the weekly live trainings, the resources, the guides, the tutorials, the tools, all that comes to a grand total of $3,650 worth of value per year. And you can get started now for, I believe it's $23 or $24. Again, recently just had some new members join, so the price has gone up. And eventually this will turn into a annual, quarterly, and monthly recurring payment type of membership. But right now it's a one-time payment type of membership, one time, and you'll be grandfathered into as the group increases and as things are upgraded and introduced. So definitely recommend getting in sooner rather than later. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to all the Dojo members. Also, I want to take a moment and welcome the Dojo's newest member, Mr. Michael Matthews. So Michael, if you're watching, if you're listening, welcome. Glad to have you as a part of the group and can't wait to see you inside in the posts and the messages, and hopefully you'll join me and the other ninjas and ninjettes inside our next live training, aka Hangout. All right. So thank you to all the ninjas and ninjettes for just being awesome. And it's really because you that this show exists and it's able to help other people. This show is completely 100% funded by my one-on-one clients, my retainer clients, and the Dojo members. So if you're not yet a Dojo member, definitely go over to optimizedself.ninja, take a look-see, see if it's a good fit for you. If for whatever reason you think it's not, let me know. Let me know how I can make it more valuable for you, and I will do my best to make it so. But please, even if you just enjoy the free show, please thank the Dojo members for their contributions, because they're what finance bases this show being possible. So with that, I'm gonna grab some water and we will get on to the first topic of the day. Okay, and actually before that, I should take this off and wave hi to everybody. And let me put a lower third so you guys know where to find me, all right? Give me 1 second as I kind of MacGyver this. I keep saying we're working on something more professional, and we are, just there's a lot more kind of important stuff that's taken priority that I want to get done before making things pretty. Although pretty is important, right? I don't want to look good. So that's me, Justin Archer, aka Sensei, and you can find me at optimizeself.ninja, as well as all the information about if you want to go take the Optimize Self test, or if you want to find out what's included inside the Optimize Self Dojo. All right, and then right next to the website, sorry, there's not too much space there, but it didn't allow for it. There's a phone number there, and that's the phone number that you can text me questions on or call and leave a voicemail that you would like for me to answer on an upcoming episode of the Optimize Self Show. All right, let me grab one more drink of water because I'm talking a lot, as I always do in these episodes. And we will get to the first topic, which happens to be Bryce. Bryce took the Optimize Self test, which is actually, I think Bryce was like the third or fourth person to do so. It's I recently updated to kind of, let's call it version 2.0. And for those of you not familiar who haven't taken the Optimize Self test, again, it's kind of a self-assessment type of tool. So because if you haven't seen before and I just start answering Bryce, you might be going, what the heck is he talking about? I'm going to go ahead and repeat the questions that I asked Bryce, that I ask people who take the test, and then read back the answers and then give my response. So that way you're on the same page as Bryce and I. All right, so here we go. So I asked Bryce, when it comes to your health, fitness, and or wellness, what is the biggest problem or issue that you struggle with or have in the past? And Bryce says lower back problems and very tight hip. In parentheses, he says range of motion, legs in general super tight, very inflexible. Which my response would be, Bryce, as well as anyone else who's in the same or similar boat as Bryce here, dealing with the same issues, is I always tell people, ask yourself, here's what I would do in this scenario. Ask yourself, what are my tight leg muscles trying to tell me about the limited range of motion, my hips, and how they affect my lower back? Maybe you've already thought about this, but that would be the question I would pose to you, or I would say to pose to yourself. All right. A great resource that I would point you towards, and I'll leave in the mention link section under the show notes, and by show notes I mean the description area over on YouTube, is a video post I did, I believe it was a year, maybe 2 years ago. It's called Correcting Common Posture Deviations, Anterior Pelvic Tilt with externally rotated femurs, aka athlete hips. And again, I'll put a link to below, but it sounds very, by your description, sounds like that video post would resonate with you and you would get some benefit from. So check that out. We're going to go much deeper into this as we go through the other questions. All right. So moving on to the second question, if you could ask me one question about your health, fitness, and/or wellness that you would like for me to answer on an upcoming episode of the Optimize Self Show, what would it be? Let's see. And Bryce says, if I have pain whenever I squat at the bottom in the front of my groin and I am inflexible, should I stop squatting for the time being? I really don't want to stop squatting, by the way. So Bryce, sounds like what you're dealing with here, and I actually have some personal experience with this phenomenon, with what you're experiencing. It sounds like femoral anterior glide syndrome, and I know that seems like a big mouthful, but let's break this down. Basically, what it is, femoral, for those of you not familiar, is your femur, your thigh bone, right? Anterior just means forward. It's a forward movement. That's anterior. Glide, obviously you know what glide means in syndrome. A syndrome is just basically if you meet this criteria, then you have this certain syndrome, all right? So if you met 3 out of 5 things, okay, you have that syndrome or more. So femoral anterior glide syndrome, what that is basically where, as you go into hip extension, as you go into hip flexion, your thigh bone should move posterior towards the back of your hip socket. But if there is an imbalance in the length and tension, or strength to weakness ratio between your iliopsoas, your primary hip flexor, as well as your gluteal muscles to hold that femur and kind of transition towards the back posterior of the hip socket as you go into that deep squat, as you go lower and lower, what happens is, and it varies from person to person, but as you get to a certain angle, a certain degree, the front of the thigh bone, because it's not moved to the back, if it stays toward the front or even gets pushed further forward, it actually butts up against the front of your hip joint. And actually what it's doing, it also pushes forward on that iliopsoas. So kind of like if my shirt was your iliopsoas and my fist was that femoral head, your thigh bone, and here it is in the front of the hip socket, it's pushing forward. It feels like the hips are actually really tight. And instinctively, a lot of people want to just stretch the ever-loving you-know-what out of it. But often I find that is not the answer. It actually does more harm than good. Really, what this requires is a couple things. One is training your gluteal muscles to stabilize the thigh bone towards the back of the socket and keep it there. The other is actually strengthening your iliopsoas. A lot of times people think it's tight, but it's not tight, it's taut. It's not short and tight, it's long and taut. And basically re-educating your femur to glide posteriorly towards the back of your body, basically towards your butt, of your hip socket as you go into hip flexion. So some things I've found very useful for this is rocking, both unilateral and bilateral rocking. So that could look something like, sorry, I got our dog Carmen there. She's very engaged in this. So you can do some simple kind of back and forth rocking, right? Like this. And as you go here, basically you're going into flexion, but because of especially depends on what range of motion, go to what's comfortable. You don't have to go super, super deep. But basically you have your body weight and the gravity in opposition to the floor. And right now it's pushing your thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket. So you can do, some rocking. You can also kind of focus more on one leg. I know you can't see what I'm doing there, so I'll move this leg. And you can kind of focus on one leg more at a time. Also, you want to externally rotate a little bit, like so. And then you can just kind of rock back and forth or kind of diagonally. And what you're looking to do is as you go into flexion, right? This would be more hip flexion. That would be more hip extension, hip flexion, closing that angle between the torso and the thigh. As you go into flexion is to train that thigh bone to move back, like it almost should feel like the thigh bone is pushing back out towards your butt muscle and getting that to sit posterior, all right? That will make room, let me bring this up here, that will make room in the front of the hip so you don't get that impingement or that femoral anterior glide where the thigh bone is coming in contact with the front of your hip joint or socket, all right? So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. I think we mentioned a little bit later, we talk about, some resistance bands, because you can use resistance bands to also help distract the thigh bone from the front of the hip socket towards the back. So you could do what I was just doing, except have a band wrapped around your thigh right here, like right around the crease. And you can have either, you know, a friend hold it, wrap it around a weight bench, something heavy, or you can even get, I forget what they call them, these little door things that fit in a door jamb that'll hold it. And so it's constantly pulling back on you and helping reset that thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket as you go into flexion. And this is really important, not just for Bryce, but anybody who's dealing with flexibility issues. A lot of times people, when they look to address flexibility, and I'll even use quotation bunny marks here, when they look to increase flexibility, they think of just stretching the muscle. Stretching muscles is only part of the equation when it comes to flexibility. I would say first and foremost, address any immobility in the joint capsule, like we were just talking about first, because a little lack of range of motion or too much range of motion one way could severely impede your range of motion, aka what you feel as flexibility. Then also look to your tissue, the quality or state of your connective tissue. That's where things like self-myofascial release techniques, whether they be done by yourself, obviously, or from someone else, like a deep tissue massage therapist, something like that, active release technique, that comes in real handy. And then I would say to follow those things up would be stretching and also strengthening other exercises. But definitely address that joint capsule first, then the tissues, and then the stretching. I would say in that order, all right? So that's important when we're talking about flexibility. Oops, let me put that camera down. All right, so I say, you know, all right, one more. If you can ask me another question about health, fitness, wellness, whatever, what would it be? And Bryce says, do you suggest getting up early, even if it cuts into your sleep schedule, in order to stretch in the morning? And do you have a special drink in the morning to start the day off? You know, when it comes to sleep, I believe that a go-to bed alarm is much more important than a wake up alarm. And if you consistently follow the prior, the go to sleep alarm, then the latter, the getting up on time, really takes care of itself. I wake up, give or plus 5 minutes to whenever I want to, as long as I go to sleep regularly at the same time. I haven't really used, with the exception of getting to some really early flights, that's the only time. So maybe a handful of times a year, probably no more than 4 times a year, have I ever used an alarm in the past probably 3 or 4 years. So it's really getting to bed on time that makes the difference, all right? And then as far as, you know, what drink that I like to start off with, I would definitely have to say, here's my routine, okay? I get up, I take the dog for a short kind of morning bathroom walk. And then I make myself a cup of bulletproof coffee. And if you haven't heard of bulletproof coffee, I'll do a quick summary and then I'll point you in a resource, a video that I've already made. Basically, take your favorite coffee, ideally freshly ground. I know I'm being kind of a coffee snob here, but basically take your favorite coffee, add some grass-fed butter, or if you have sensitivities to dairy, you can do grass-fed ghee, which is basically melted down, clarified butter without the milk proteins. And then you also add in some MCT oil, which stands for medium chain triglycerides, if you don't already know. And basically, and MCT oil is derived from coconut oil and or palm kernel oil. And you put that in your coffee. If you want a little bit sweeter, you can put in stevia or xylitol. Don't use sugar or artificial sweeteners. And you mix it up. And, you know, right there you've got probably a good 300-400 calories of high quality fats that will, one, put the caffeine on a slow drip for you, but especially if you're looking to be in more of a nutritional ketosis or produce ketones for your brain to run off of, oh my gosh, this does that amazingly. So that's my favorite drink. I actually made a whole video post on it titled Wake Up Right and Pain Free with Bulletproof Coffee, and I'll link to it in the show notes below. So I actually take you through all the steps and you can watch me watch it, and there's a whole write-up of you know why it's healthy and why I recommend it and all that stuff. So definitely check that out. All right, let's see. Now we get into the questions about lifestyle, because I think it's important. I want to pause just a moment in the questioning to point out to everybody, to Bryce and everybody else watching, that Your body is a stimulus response organism, and it responds to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters, not your best intentions. And I should probably work up a graphic for this, and I think I am. If you kind of take on a pie chart every 24 hours, right, from 12:01 to 11:59, look at what do you do the most out of that period, and whatever you do the most, look to address that first and optimize that. If not perfected, 80% and above, because that's what's going to have the biggest impact and influence on your overall well-being. Then look at what commonly practiced stimulus you do second most, and then address that. So that's why I teach about the foundations of health in the order of breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, exercise, as well as things that, although I don't include in foundations of health, I think are always influencing positively or negatively those 7 foundations of health, and those would be environment and mindset. So, keep that in mind and think about how do all those things synergistically add up to whatever the quality of your health is, and how is it either helping you achieve your goal, or how is one or more of those things, how you're doing them or not doing them, holding you back from what you want to achieve, from having the health, the life that you want. All right. So with that said, let's go into some of these questions that ask more about that. First one is, how often do you practice any forms of meditation and or conscious, ideally diaphragmatic breathing? And Bryce says weekly. So I would try to, Bryce, step that up to daily, and about 15 minutes per day, total per day. So it doesn't have to be all at once. Actually, I would not advise someone, especially first starting off, to do 15 minutes altogether. It's far too challenging to stay that focused on conscious diaphragmatic breathing, especially if you've never done it before. Maybe 5 minutes max the first time, and then you can do like 5 minutes morning, 5 minutes in the middle of the day, 5 minutes in the evening. And what do I mean by conscious diaphragmatic breathing? Is instead of breathing how like most people do, which is in the chest and the shoulders and the neck, which is, those are breathing muscles, but they're secondary. They're auxiliary breathing muscles that should only really be used when you're, running from a lion, or, as more realistically, probably doing wind sprints or something like that. But when you're just talking like we are here, I guess I'm talking, you're listening, you should be engaging your primary breathing muscle, which is your diaphragm. And it basically fits here under the rib cage, kind of dome shape, and it acts like a piston. And I'll show you how it should look like, okay? So I put my hands here on top of my hips and right above the softer, on some of us it may be softer than others. Watch when I breathe in. Notice how it pushed my hands laterally out to the side. And that was inhaling, okay? And then it shrinks down as I exhale. So that's what I mean by diaphragmatic breathing. And this could be done in many different positions. It could be done standing, it could be done kneeling, lying on your back, lying on your stomach. I actually have a whole section inside the Optimize Self Arsenal on how to move your breath to different areas of your body, wherever you need it, whether it be your back, your hips, groin area, your chest, your shoulders, different parts of your back. Because here's the thing, when you learn to control your breath and direct it, you can actually change where the oxygen and blood flow is going. And you can actually make your own internal little like heating pad, all right? And to help you trigger your diaphragm, here's what I'd recommend doing, is close your mouth. You don't have to close it hard, like really hard, but just keep your mouth closed and breathe in and out through your nose at approximately a 1 to 2 inhale to exhale ratio. So inhale through your nose, like say 3 seconds, and then exhale through your nose 6 seconds. That'll help calm your central nervous system. It'll help trigger your diaphragm. And as you're breathing there, one, ideally you're focusing in during that time, but ideally that should start to carry over and you start breathing like that automatically all the time throughout the day. And seeing as how the average human takes roughly 22 to 30,000 breaths per day, that's 22 to 30,000 tiny expansion, contraction, almost like an inside out massage to your lower back muscles, not to mention your whole pelvic girdle, hip flexors, all that, because your diaphragm ties into all that. So if you can learn to breathe like that, I won't say it's going to fix all your hip problems and back problems, but I would say it would improve it by at least 30% if that's all you did was just the breathing. Now, I'm sure you don't want to settle just for 30%, so we'll continue with the questioning, but that's a good place to start. Let's see. How much do you weigh? 210. How many ounces of water do you drink per day? 128. And of course, the reason I asked those two questions is to make sure that Bryce or anyone else watching is drinking a bare minimum of half your body weight in ounces of water per day, which it definitely seems like Bryce is. So Bryce, keep up the good work. And just don't forget to drink more on the days that you work out or exercise, and or when you consume any caffeinated or alcoholic beverages. If you have a cup of coffee, that's fine. Like I said, I like bulletproof coffee, but I make sure to drink a 2-to-1 ratio. So if I drink 12 ounces of coffee, I'm going to drink 24 ounces of water to offset that I was going to say bottle, but mug of coffee. That's the word I'm looking for. So keep that in mind. And the reason that this is important, the reason this is vital is because hydration is vital to the length, tension, function, and adaptability of your muscles, your myofascia, and your other connective tissues surrounding your lower back and hips, as well as, well, pretty much all over the rest of your body. So if you want your body to respond to certain stretches or certain exercises, you can't expect it to when it's dehydrated. Because what is dehydrated meat, right? What is dehydrated muscle? It's beef jerky, and we've all seen beef jerky. And what happens if you're trying to stretch beef jerky? Well, either one of two things: either nothing happens, doesn't go anywhere, or B, it tears. And I'm sure you don't want that for your body. Bryce doesn't. I'm sure anybody else watching doesn't. I know I don't. So instead, you want to make sure your tissue is hydrated, so it's like nice, supple filet mignon that is adaptable to whatever stimulus you feed it, whatever positions you attempt to put it in, whatever exercises, stretches, strengthening that you feed it. All right. Let's see, how much and what kind of salt do you consume daily? Bryce says, I don't know. The reason I asked that is because salt is kind of like the taxi driver, or I guess in modern day age, the Uber driver of the water. Make sure that the water gets to where it needs to be, whether it's your brain, your other extremities. And so you're not just consuming water and basically pissing it away, pissing it out, urine away. I always suggest using pink Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt. Pink Himalayan, definitely. And you can find both in grocery stores pretty much everywhere. And granted, with one-on-one clients, when we get more specific, I may say exactly this much, exactly at this time. But really right now, I would just say, just add to your food or in your water to taste. This will ensure that, like I said, you utilize the water that you consume. Want to make sure that you're not just what you eat or what you drink, you're what you absorb. And I think that's very important. We'll get into that a little bit later with food. I also suggest trying 1 teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt mixed in with 8 to 12 ounces of cold water to help with adrenal health. This is something I do every 2 months. I take a week off of all caffeinated beverages. Really, the only caffeine I have is from a daily cup of coffee. So it's pretty easy to do. And basically what I do is instead that week is I have a cup of water, 8 to 12 ounces with a teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt. And that's basically to help to give your adrenals a break because that's the receptors in your brain that the caffeine molecule interacts with. So if you are chronically caffeinated, over caffeinated for too long or too much, those receptors start to get worn out, and that's why you tend to need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or however many cups of coffee just to get through the day, or Red Bull, or whatever your caffeine choices. So let's see, let's move on to, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how would you rate the quality of your sleep? Bryce says 5. So that's about in the middle. Here's a couple things, Bryce, I'm going to suggest you do to improve the quality of your sleep. Some you might already be doing, some people, though listening, may not know of. Trying to turn off all screens roughly an hour, 2 hours preferably, but I have to admit that's even hard for me to do, but try to turn them off an hour before bed. The reason being is because the blue and white light emitted from the screens will interfere with certain hormone secretions, and it'll just mess with your circadian rhythm, how you sleep. If you absolutely do have to use a screen within the last hour before being awake, if it's on a desktop or laptop of some sort, I recommend downloading Flux. I think the website's GoFlux. but or go flux or get flux. You can Google it. Basically, the way I describe it is it's a sunset for your computer. So wherever you happen to be in the world, you set it to, it'll obviously figure out where you are in the world. You set it, and as the sun starts to go down, you'll start to notice your screen take on a more orange reddish hue than it was during the day. And basically what it's doing is it's filtering out that blue and white light. And only for the first day or two does it actually look weird. You're kind of like, that's odd. And then you totally forget about it unless you, like I did about a couple months later, go, oh, I want to see what this looks like with this thing off, or I disable flux, and then I'm blinded by the light, and I go, wow, I can't believe I used to use my computer like this all the time. So it's much better for your eyes, and it's cool. You set it, you forget it, and basically the sun sets on your computer as the sun sets outside to, again, kind of filter out that blue and white light. I don't know if they have it for Android. iOS, they don't have it, or you do, but you have to like jailbreak it. It's a big whole thing. So basically all I do is I just make sure that my brightness is turned down, as low as can be, if in fact I have to look at it. So that'll go a long way to helping improve the quality of your sleep. Also, we talked about this, touched upon this earlier, is try to go to bed at a consistent time 7 days a week. Don't be like, oh, this, I have, this day off, or so I'm going to stay up really late today and then go to bed earlier. Try to get to bed at a consistent time, at least within the same hour, if not, better, probably within the same half hour. That'll help a lot. Also, when you go to bed, make sure your bedroom is as dark as can be. Use blackout shades, especially if you're in a city. Use a face mask, or like an eye mask. I guess not a whole face mask, but use an eye mask if need be. If you have anything in your bedroom that emits light, try to turn it off or turn it away from you at least. The other thing too is cool your room and or bed to about 66 to 68 degrees. So obviously you can do this with your thermostat. There is, I can't remember the product name, Cool Sheets, Cool Bed, Cool Pad, something like that, which is basically a layer that goes over your bed and that you can set at different temperatures at different times. You can use that. A really cheap, simple way is you can have your whole body covered up, but take one bare foot and stick it outside the covers. That will help bring your body temperature down a bit and improve sleep. Oh, and the other is, we talked about using that conscious diaphragmatic breathing, especially the 1 to 2 inhale exhale ratio, to help calm your central nervous system. Well, you can do that, I would suggest, immediately prior to bed, because again, that'll help calm your central nervous system. And you can do it in what's known as the static back position. And I'll make sure to include a link in the show notes below on how to do that. But basically, you just lie on your back. Let me see if I can do a little demo here without running over the dog. So if you were to lay on your back like this, and then have a chair or ottoman lying like here, maybe even your bed, depending on how high your bed is, about at 90 degrees, and then your upper body just relaxing with your arms. So something would be supporting your legs. You're totally relaxed. And basically what you're doing there is using your body weight in combination with the gravity in opposition with the floor to put your pelvis and low back, or put your pelvis in a neutral position. As a result of that, your lower back, then mid back, then upper back, your whole spine will start to segmentally, vertebra by vertebra, extend. It's also going to move rotation in your torso and your hips if you have any. So that way, 5 minutes of that in conjunction with the conscious diaphragmatic breathing we already covered will make it so that you're bringing a better aligned body to bed with you. All right, that'll help improve your sleep. Bryce says he does get 7 hours on average of sleep per night, so that's good. Adults require 6 to 9 hours per night. There's no specific, so I think 7 is good. I personally find 7.5 for me is good. That's what my sweet spot. And I would really, Bryce, if you decide to join the Optimize Yourself Dojo, I would love to have you on the show. One, to talk about whatever it is else that you're struggling with that I and the other dojo members could help you with, but also to ask you, what are some of the things, some of the routines, the rituals and habits that you've set up in your life to make sure that you regularly get 7 hours of sleep per night? Because there's people in the group, including myself from time to time, who struggle with this. And I would love to have you on. And I think that you would be able to add to the collective knowledge and experience of the dojo. So that'd be great. Let's see. What position do you usually sleep in? Bryce says, I move around a lot. I try to sleep on my back, but I don't wake up on my back. I'm going to get some water. I'll answer that. So there's a couple things you can do about that. Number one, we already covered a bit, which is bringing a better aligned body with you to bed. You do that using the static back position, do that 5 minutes along with the conscious diaphragmatic breathing, the 1-to-2 inhale-exhale ratio, all that jazz. Do that immediately prior to bed. I'm talking have your teeth brushed, everything. Go from that right into bed. And basically what you're doing, a lot of people, if they were to play soccer, even if you're not a soccer player, would do some form of warm-up, whether it's stretching, some little, kicks in the air, something to warm up, because they're like, oh, I'm going to go play soccer, I'm going to warm up. But a lot of people don't think of sleeping as an activity, so they don't warm up. I should nickname this episode the Quotation Bunny episode. But no, by warm up, I mean, think about it. You sleep on average 7 hours a night. Now, number one, let's put that in context of, remember, it's what you do the majority of the time that matters the most, not your best intentions. So sleep plays a huge role. You do it 7 hours on average out of every 24-hour cycle. And again, your body's going to respond to whatever you do the most and how you do it. So, how you sleep is going to play a major role on your posture, the position of your body. There's one more thing I wanted to do before I skipped ahead, and I'm trying to remember what that was. I'm sorry, about the soccer plan. I skipped over that. A lot of people don't think of sleeping as an activity, but it is. And so that 5 minutes of static back with the conscious diaphragmatic breathing will act as kind of a warm-up to you sleeping. So you bring a better aligned body to bed, just like you would if you did a warm-up before soccer. You bring a more warmed up body to the soccer field so you can be a better soccer player, perform better on the field. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, going back, sorry, I was jumping back and forth. To how much you sleep, and more specifically what position you sleep in, plays a major role in how it casts your body, the shape your body takes. Well, sleeping on your sides inevitably leads to postural asymmetries. And by asymmetries, I mean one hip higher than the other, one shoulder higher than the other, obviously a shoulder rolled forward if you're sleeping on that side. So what I recommend instead is try to sleep on your back, which it sounds like, Bryce, you are, but you don't always wake up on your back. And usually what I found as what that's a result of is from you, kind of your subconscious, because obviously you're unconscious while you're sleeping, trying to correct some type of pelvic asymmetry by having, flopping one leg out to the side, and then that one leg carries the rest of the body, and next thing you know, you wake up lying on your side. So what I recommend to most people is sleep on your back with either 0 to 1 pillow under your head. You can use more if need be, but eventually you want to get to the point where you need 0. So that way your ear is in line with your shoulder, not pushed forward. Because if you have a forward head position, basically, if you're like this and you're constantly using 2 or 3 pillows in your head, well, no wonder why. You're practicing 7 hours a day practicing this, probably more if you're looking at a computer and doing other things where your head's pushed forward. So eventually you want to get down to 0, but 0 to 1 pillow under your head, and then either 1 to 2 pillows under your knee and lower leg. And sorry, it sounded like there was a plane coming through here. 1 to 2 pillows under your knees and lower leg will help it's kind of like a mini version of static back, and it'll help put your pelvis in a more neutral position, just unload your lower back muscles and put you in a more symmetrical position. But sometimes people need more than 1 or 2 pillows. Sometimes they need 3 or 4. I've never seen someone who needs 5 or 6, but occasionally people need 3 or 4. And I always tell people, if you find yourself waking up and rolling to one side, you probably need more than 2 pillows. Go ahead and add them, and that'll keep you from turning. Because even if in the middle of the night your body goes to turn, there's so much bolstering by 3 or 4 pillows, right? Because the weight of your legs kind of goes in the middle, and it makes almost like a light little V, right? Like a little canal. And if you go to one side and the opposition of the pillow kind of pushes you back, you'll stay centered. So I would try that. Start with 1 or 2 pillows. If you still find yourself waking under your lower leg, if you find yourself waking up still on your side, try 3 or 4. All right, and then 0 to 1 under the head. Let's see. Do you eat any of the following foods on a daily or weekly basis? And basically the list that Bryce or anyone else taking the test has to choose from is 7 of the most common high inflammatory foods out there. And Bryce chose gluten, dairy, eggs, corn, peanuts, and sugar/artificial sweeteners. The only one he didn't was soy. So Bryce, what I would suggest is try and avoid these foods, the ones that you listed that you do consume on a daily or weekly basis, as well as soy, which it sounds like you're already doing. So keep doing that. Try to avoid those as much as possible because these types of foods cause systemic inflammation throughout your entire body and negatively affect your pain, your posture, and your performance. And I go much deeper into this on the Optimizing Your Nutrition module, which is found inside the Optimize Self Dojo. So if you join, I definitely recommend you check out that one because a lot of those foods that you listed that you are consuming on a daily or weekly basis are biochemically, not to be confused with biomechanically, but biochemically really holding you back in terms of your energy, also in terms of just creating, again, systemic inflammation in your body that can show up as joint pain. And even if you correct the postural issue, like we talked about, getting that femur to glide posteriorly towards the back of your hip socket so there's not an impingement on the front of the hip joint or socket, if you're still consuming these foods, number one is the energy your body could put towards holding that new, better posture. It's going to also be putting towards fighting some of the inflammatory responses from those foods, as well as if it is creating joint inflammation, biochemically induced inflammation, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire or trying to put out the fire with the hose while simultaneously pouring gasoline on it, and it just never, the fire never goes out. So by all means, treat it biomechanically speaking with postural corrective exercises and such, and use the rocking and the resistance bands and all that. But don't continue to eat foods that are like kryptonite to Superman, to you, because you're it's like taking one step when you're trying to solve this problem. It's like taking one step forward and then one step, or even worse yet, 2 steps back. And what I recommend and what I show you to use inside the Optimizing Your Nutrition module is how to use an elimination diet. And I want to make sure this is clear, not as a lifestyle. You do not do an elimination diet for a life. You use it for a predetermined amount of time, usually 2 to 3 months, to determine what foods are harming you, which foods you have intolerances or sensitivities to, both of which are different than allergies. Those I'm sure everybody pretty well aware of their allergies. If you're allergic to peanuts and it swells up and you had to be rushed to the hospital, probably you always have an EpiPen on you. Those are allergies. Intolerances and sensitivities are different. Again, it's kind of beyond the scope of this one episode. So check out the Optimizing Nutrition module. But yeah, if you do have intolerance and sensitivities to those foods, man, and eating 6 out of 7 of those high inflammatory foods that statistically most people are sensitive to, that is holding you back in a big way. And I just hate to see people who try really hard, maybe say, in one way, exercise, only to be held back by, oh, it's what you eat. It's almost, the more and more I do this, more and more I tell people, hey, exercise is great, but let's focus a little less on exercise and focus a little bit better on living better, learning more how the body works and working with it rather than against it. I always tell people hard work is fine, but let's work smart and then hard if need be. And most people, unless you're trying to be like an extreme high performance athlete, you don't even really need to work that hard. You just need to understand how the body works and work with how it works. All right. So yeah, again, Bryce, if you do join the dojo, definitely make sure to check out the Optimizing Your Nutrition module. Let's see, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being stressed out, how would you rate your stress level? Bryce says an 8. So there's a couple things you can do about this. Anybody who's stressed out, but I'll speak towards Bryce, is first and foremost, eliminate things and people who are distracting you from achieving your goals, i.e. becoming your best, doing the things that you need to do consistently to get your hips and your lower back and all that working the way that you want to. Stress is necessary, right? We need stress, but there's a difference between bad stress, i.e. distress, and good stress, like a good workout, which would be eustress or good stress. All right, so eliminate the distress, the bad stress. Focus on breathing to control your stress levels. This is actually the simplest, fastest, most well-documented way of controlling your stress, especially that conscious diaphragmatic breathing, that 1 to 2 inhale to exhale ratio. And I've tested this time and time again with other people and myself. I could do something really high intensity, like a couple of burpees or push-ups, or get really mad or upset about something. And then in as little as 3 breaths, watch, and I've done this with multiple heart rate monitors to make sure it wasn't a fluke, watching my heart rate just drop drastically. And it's cool to see. It's cool. It's really neat to see when you have control over that you have control over your flight or fight response and how angry or upset or calm you can be at any given time. Stress is inevitable. It's a part of life. It's more so training yourself, your brain and your body to how you react to it. And that's definitely doable. Something, if you're not already well aware, I'd recommend looking into is HRV training. And HRV stands for heart rate variability training. And I go a little bit more into that and some other stuff in the optimizing your stress module. So again, if you join the dojo, check that out. How many minutes do you spend standing/walking per day? Bryce says more than an hour. So that's really good. I should probably include in there maybe an option to say exactly how much, but more than an hour, that's good. That's more than the average person. Now, here's what I would say though, because there's all this stuff going around that people hear, sitting is the new smoking and the whole movement towards standing desks, and that's all fine. I always like to remind people though, hey, why do we start to adopt sitting workstations? Well, it's because during the Industrial Revolution and there was work lines, people were working standing, and there was too many repetitive motion type injuries due to standing too much. So then we had people sit, and now we're going towards everybody towards standing, and then probably later on we'll all go back to sitting. Or hopefully we will figure out that standing nor sitting is ideally perfect. People always ask me what positions do they sit in or what positions do they stand in. My answer is always your next position is your best position. All right. Also, standing for too long a period of time can lead to things, well, Bryce, like you're describing, the femoral anterior glide syndrome. And the way it does that is the longer you stand. Let me see if I could back this up here. Again, try not to stand on the dog. But if you see my feet, now I also don't know what type of footwear you're wearing, but I'm going to assume, just off of sheer statistics and all the people that I've worked with, that you're wearing a shoe where the heel is higher than the toes. Maybe you're not wearing high heels, right? Like stilettos or, most, when people think of high heels, they think of women's high heels. But men, if you're wearing a dress shoe or an athletic shoe, the majority of the shoes out there, they are technically high heels, or at least medium heels, where the heels are higher than the toes. Well, what's that have to do with femoral anterior glide syndrome? Is the further your heels come off the ground, the further the weight goes towards your toes, and the further that shifts your hips forward. And the further that shifts the femur, your thigh bone, towards the front of its socket, femoral anterior glide syndrome. So by just simply getting your heels level to the ground, from taking them from, like say here, maybe in a regular dress or athletic shoe, down to here, is going to transition your hips back underneath you, above the knees and ankles and below the shoulders and ear, so that the thigh bones, the femurs, fit in a neutral or posterior position in the hip sockets, and that'll go a long way to you being able to get into a deeper squat more comfortably. It'll add to better, hip mobility. All right. So yeah, that's where standing for too long a period of times could be a bad thing. Also, if you do find yourself having to stand for a long period of time, first of all, I would refer you to a video post I did a while ago called, just give me 1 second, How Should You Be Standing? And I'll include a link to that in the mentioned links or the show notes. Another would be is called What If You Have to Stand All Day? Again, I'll include that in the show notes below. And there's a lot of good takeaways from those 2 video posts, but one specifically is I'd say regularly, if you have to stand for long periods of time, regularly assume the Captain Morgan pose. And that basically, most of us Now, as you stand, put one leg up on something, right? Like when you go to a bar and there's that bar that runs underneath of the bar and there's the stools, well, that bar is there to put a foot up on. And what that'll do is allow you to take your hips and back out of extension and put it into a little flexion, which is more neutral, which is almost like a vertical kind of mini version of a static back. All right. So again, I go into more of that in the video post that I just mentioned, and we'll link to in the show notes below. Let's see. How many hours do you spend sitting / stagnant per day? 6 hours. Now again, Bryce, I don't know more than an hour. I should probably add like I said, an option there. So that's my bad for not being more specific. But I'm gonna go to about an hour, hour and a half, maybe, that you stand and walk. So sitting and stagnant, 6 hours. So think about this. I want to make sure I'm not just harping on Bryce here. This goes for anybody watching. Bryce, you're spending more than 5 to 6 times the amount of time sitting and stagnant than you are standing and walking. So again, let's review. And I think this, I'm going to repeat myself, but it's definitely bears repeating. Is the human body is a stimulus response organism, and it's responding to stimulus 24/7. Without prejudice. So it doesn't, which means that it's not just going to respond positively to an hour or more that you're standing walking, go, yeah, that's good stimulus, let's respond positively to that, and then go, oh, sitting and being stagnant for more than for 6 hours a day, that's bad, I'm not going to respond to that. No, it has no prejudice. It responds to good or bad stimulus, which means then that it's what you do the majority of the times that matters. It's what you do the majority of the time that matters the most, not your best intentions. Okay, this is why I tell people, although exercise is an important part of the formula, it's a part of the recipe, it cannot be and should not be the entire recipe. Okay. Let's see, how many times per week? Oh, we're talking about exercise. How many times per week do you work out? 6. How long do you work out for? 75 minutes. So here's something too, and this, I'm just going off the answers that Bryce gave me. Bryce, as well as anybody else listening who's maybe in a similar boat here, may have answered some of these questions similarly that Bryce has. Keep in mind that the results you can achieve from exercise will always be limited by the combined quality / state of your other foundations of health, those being breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, and movement. Okay, so the quality of those added up is going to limit the results you get from exercise, whether it be postural corrective exercises, strength training, cardio, whatever. All right. And as long as you've addressed and are 80% or more optimal in those other 6 foundations of health, what I've found is you can get away with actually very little exercise. Now, that doesn't mean no exercise. That doesn't mean, just being lazy and stuff. But what I found is that high intensity, shorter duration workouts often prove to be more effective and obviously more efficient than low intensity, long duration workouts. Unless you're trying to be a marathon runner or something, there's no need that you need to be on a treadmill for, an hour or more. Quite frankly, if you are, and again, you're not training for something very long distance, I can very confidently say that is a complete waste of time. Especially if there's some people, and Bryce, maybe you do like working out, and there's been times in my life where I like working out more than others, or that I've prioritized workout time more than other things. That's definitely not what I'm here to, by all means, to do, is to pass judgment on. Some people like working out, others don't, but I think it's a pretty fair truth to say that most people don't like to work out excessively than the people who like to work out. It's a much smaller demographic of the world than the people who do not. Unfortunately, marketing, misinformation, social memes, and all that have made people believe that you have to work out, you have to be on the treadmill, you have to set aside an hour or an hour and a half every day to work out. And I'm very happy to say that that could not be further from the truth. You can have low to mid-level athletic performance, as well as be very healthy across many different biomarkers with as little as 10 to 30 minutes of exercise, not even every day, like 5-6 days a week, seriously. Which kind of brings up, my next point is, like I said, yeah, I already made that point. Kind of brings up a question. which Bryce I'll pose to you, is are you exercising for any particular athletic goal, sport, or skill? And this is something maybe I'll add into a revised version of the Optimize Health test, because when people do answer in larger numbers, I'm curious to know why. Again, if someone likes to work out, great. If that brings them joy and happiness, okay. Still want to make sure you're taking care of the other foundations of health so that you get the best results out of the time and effort you spend doing the exercises, because I know no one likes to exercise and not get results. There are people who like to exercise, but they sure as hell want the results from it. So it's still important to address the other foundations of health. But oftentimes I find people who, when they're high in numbers and then we get into a deeper conversation, they don't even like it, but they feel obligated. They've been sold on this idea that they have to exercise more, and they're very relieved to find out, no, you don't. And quite frankly, you're doing your body more harm than good by exercising too much, and you'll make more gains by exercising less. So again, that's not a straight rule across the board. So that's why I'm holding off any judgments or answers until, Bryce would get back to me and say, hey, I'm working out because I really like this, or maybe you're training for a special, maybe you're on a team of some sort, or you're training for a special sport or skill or something like that. But generally speaking, to most people who are just looking to be healthy, to look good naked, I would tell people, focus less on exercise. Don't totally ignore it. It's still important, but focus less on exercise and focus more on consistently making healthy choices, i.e. living better. Because remember, it's what you do the majority of the time that matters, not your best intentions. So everybody's so fixated on the hour. If they work out an hour per day, and let's be honest, most people don't, but they're so fixated on the hour out of every 24 hours of exercise and how to perfect that it's like they seem to overlook, no, what are you doing the other 23 hours? Because in comparison, what you do an hour in the gym doesn't mean shit compared to the 23 other hours that you're living your life. To what quality are you living the rest of your life? Are you breathing, drinking, sleeping, eating, thinking, feeling, i.e. stressing, moving? How's your environment influencing your mindset? All of that matters much, much more than what exercises and what form and what sequence you're doing in the gym. By all means, it's still important. I hope everybody understands I'm not like poo-pooing over exercise. It is very important. I used to be a personal trainer. I used to do amateur bodybuilding. I've been in some type of posh alignment therapy or physical therapy for, 8 years. Yeah, it's been more than 8 years now. So I hope you understand. I love exercise and working out, and I can talk about biomechanics and anatomy and kinesiology and all that stuff till the cows come home. Hell, I've even postural assessed a cow. That's when I know I'm working too much and I need a break. But seriously, don't get too fixated on exercise. It's a slippery slope that often there's no coming back from. That's maybe too too dark, but just don't focus too much on exercise, all right? Because of course you also want to make sure that you're not overtraining. So that's important too. That's kind of beyond the scope of today's show, but I go much deeper into that in the optimizing your exercise, as well as the optimizing your stress modules inside the dojo. Let's see, let's move on to the next question here. I know we ran a little bit long with that one. Let me grab some water before we do. But I hope you can see by the time I took on the exercise one, I'm very passionate about that. Let's see, how conducive is your environment, things like your work, home, peer group, et cetera, to you achieving your goals? Bryce says, and this is scale from 1 to 10, 10 being ideal, 0 being not very. Bryce says 8. So Bryce, that sounds good. I'm sure everyone like myself is curious to know how you've accomplished this, because everyone kind of is the saying, you are what you eat. Granted, I like to take it one step further and say you are what you eats. But you are the sum average of, who you hang out with, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, who and what you surround yourself with, and most importantly, what you consistently do. That's one of the founding factors, the founding principles of the Optimized Self Dojo, is to be a part of a group, the accountability / support group of like-minded individuals, people who are looking to become the best version of themselves possible, so that then they can go out and motivate and inspire others to be the best versions of themselves possible, and together we can positively change the world. You know, even if the gateway discussion is on health, fitness, and wellness, it could also be in other parts of life, because obviously we each have our own unique ability of what we bring to the world and how we can benefit others. But yeah, I know I and the other dojo members, I'm sure I can speak for them, is what have you done to get that 8 out of a 10? Definitely want to learn more inside the dojo. Let's see, what is your general mindset? Bryce says, hopeful, informed, skeptical, overwhelmed. Let me move, I'm just doing some window arrangement here, everybody. And actually, I'm gonna close some window. I'm just trying to save some bandwidth here. All right. Let's see, what is your general mindset? Hopeful, informed, skeptical, overwhelmed. So being hopeful and informed is good. Just remember that there's a big difference between knowing and doing, and an even bigger difference between knowing, did, and doing. All right, I think that's important. A lot of people know things, less do things. Some of them did things, but even less are continuing to do things. As far as being skeptical, I always welcome skeptics, because, and I would say I'm, you know, as optimistic as I am, I'm also skeptical, because you know, although listening to health professionals is usually a good idea, I would say that doing what they say without first taking responsibility for your own health and doing your own due diligence is always, I was going to say almost, but I would say is always a bad idea. So, you know, especially with the majority of health info being a combination of misinformation, marketing, and social memes, I can understand the overwhelm that anybody has. It's so hard to believe that anybody's not overwhelmed. I mean, this is the majority of what makes up my everyday. So I have the luxury of having the time to sift through it all and cross-reference this and test this out and experiment with that. You know, I don't have this. Is my job or business. Other people don't, and I can only fathom to imagine how do you go through that and have, you know, if you're a lawyer or a doctor, some of these other things. Man, it's hard. And again, sifting through all that misinformation, marketing, social media. So I can sympathize with you, Bryce, about being overwhelmed, as well as I'm sure everyone else can be. But that's again another part of the reason I put together the dojo, is to, you know, Bryce, you're only one person, I'm only one person, but even just the two of us together, we have, if you put our knowledge and our experience together, boom, we've doubled it, if not, I'm sure, synergistically tripled it. Imagine what happens, you bring on another person, 2 more people, 4 more people, 8 more people, 60 more people, 32 more people. Well, that's the whole point of the dojo, is to crowdsource knowledge and experience and leverage off that knowledge and experience of other people. So if that resonates with you, I definitely think you like the dojo. Let's see, is there anything else that you feel, think, believe is contribute to holding you back from being your optimized self? Bryce says, my current situation is not necessarily great, but I'm working on making my environment the best it can be. That sounds good. You know, please let me know if I and or the other dojo members can help out in any way or form, and we will do our absolute best to do so. That's what we're here for. Let's see, who holds you accountable and supports you in your health, fitness, wellness endeavors? Bryce says, I mostly do, but one of my best friends and I text almost daily, and we push each other / keep each other motivated. My parents also check in and make sure I'm doing all right. Good parents. I do not have anyone that I speak to in person that truly holds me accountable. So yeah, I mean, I sincerely believe that you would benefit immensely from the built-in accountability / support group of the Optimized Self Dojo. Bryce, I don't know if you ever belong to any type of mastermind group, or anyone else has. If anyone out there watching, you know, has been in any business, whether it be online or physical brick and mortar, you might have belonged to a mastermind of, you know, like-minded individuals, you know, maybe entrepreneurs that, you know, especially when you're your own boss, you know, it's harder to hold yourself accountable. You don't have anybody saying this needs to be done at this time. And so a mastermind is really great, where you can come share, hey, here's what I'm up to, here's what I'm struggling with, but yeah, I want to get this done by this time. And the other members of that group will hold you accountable. And if you're struggling with something, or if you stumble and fall, they will also help support you. that's what the dojo is for. Granted, just focusing more on health, fitness, and wellness rather than masterminds do for business purposes. Let's see. Also, yeah, I think you would, Bryce, really like the weekly live trainings, otherwise known as hangouts, that we do every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which you are more than welcome to join me live online and share, with me and the group, how you've, consistently gotten 7 hours or more of sleep regularly, or how you've set up your your environment, and some of the other things that I think you are doing really well, as well as asking me and the other dojo members for help for the things that you're currently struggling with. Let's see, last but certainly not least on that one, Bryce, and anyone else watching, keep those that hold you accountable and support you close, because people like that are willing to take the time and be there for you, and also just call you out when you're being stupid, or basically just like, okay, you say you want this thing, but your actions aren't leading you towards that way, that won't hesitate to call you out on that and then have a deep conversation about that with you. Those people are hard to find. So if you already found them and your friends and your family, keep them close. Do you know about the Optimize Self Dojo? Bryce says no, but I'll definitely check it out. Do please. We'd love to have you as a member, like I've said multiple times over. And it sounds like you also have a pretty good support group too. So I would, please invite your friends and your family to join, and, send them to optimizeself.ninja and have them take the Optimize Self test. And, however I or any of the dojo members can help, please let us know. All right. I think we're getting on to the end here. What would you love to see in the inbox from optimizeself.ninja? Bryce says specific details on how to improve my flexibility, any advice on my squatting dilemma. Let's see, no, I didn't actually cover these yet. So 2 more great resources, Bryce, I'm going to link to in the show notes below. These are 2 past posts I've done that I immediately thought of when I was reading your answers, your responses to the Optimize Self test. One is, don't confuse hip flexor excuse me, dry throat. Don't confuse hip flexor weakness for tightness. And the other is short and tight versus long and taut athletic posture types. So I'll link to those in the show notes below over on YouTube. Let's see, last question. Have you shared Optimize Self Ninja with a friend, family member, or someone you care about? Bryce says, yes, I promise I have. So Bryce, thank you very much for sharing the love and spreading the word. I really, really appreciate it. I look forward to hopefully seeing you and whomever you cared to share optimizeself.ninja with, hopefully inside the dojo someday soon. If you found this or any other answers helpful, or maybe if you keep watching, there's going to be other answers to other people. If you find any of those answers helpful on today's video, please go ahead and like the video on YouTube. Please continue to share it with your friends, your family member, loved ones, the cat. Please share with them on your favorite social media platform. I know there's a lot of options there on YouTube. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button on the Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going on inside the Optimize Self Ninja ecosphere, for lack of a better term. All right. Anyways, hope to see you inside the dojo soon. Thank you for taking the test and writing it in. You're awesome, and look forward to hearing from you again soon. All right. Take it easy, Bryce. All right. So let me grab some water, and we will continue on to the second topic. Okay. Let's see. Eric from the Don't Confuse Hip Flexor Weakness for Tightness video. This is actually one that I just made reference to Bryce like seconds ago. He comments in on that video. Thank you for this. I thought my hip flexors were tight, but I stand fine. It's just when I sprint and do track, it begins to hurt. So from the sound of it, and for those of you that just watched Bryce's response, or Bryce, if you're still watching, and Eric, if you're wondering what's he talking about, just rewind a little bit before right now, and you'll see what I'm talking about, where I address Bryce's Optimize Self test results. From the sound of it, it sounds like you guys are in a similar boat. Maybe not exactly the same boat, but a very similar boat, because from the description, Eric, I'm referring to you now, from the description of the onset and what exacerbates your symptoms, it sounds like you're experiencing femoral anterior glide syndrome too, much like Bryce was, or some type of femoral acetabular type of impingement. one of the two, but it sounds pretty similar. So first of all, yeah, I just got done referring to a lot of answers from Bryce. So I would definitely look at the timestamps, and there should be one. Not there should, there will be one. Just don't know what the time is because I'm recording this live right now, where I respond to Bryce about some of the issues that he's dealing with his what sounds like femoral anterior glide syndrome. So I definitely recommend you go just rewind or click on that timestamp, and it'll jump to the spot where I started addressing Bryce, and we talk a lot about some of the different lifestyle factors and issues and how femoral anterior glide syndrome works and what could be done about it and that kind of stuff. So definitely go back and watch that. The two places I would have you look at. One, you've already taken a look at the Don't Confuse Hip Flexor Weakness for Tightness video, so that's one check. The other is, I don't know if you've already seen this one, short and tight versus long and taut athletic postural types. I'll include that link in the show notes below. But yeah, basically what's happening here is you say, you know, I think your hip flexors are tight, but they're fine when you stand. So if you're standing here, right, and your hip flexors goes from your deep on your inner thigh through your pelvis and attaches to every lumbar vertebrae of your lower back. You got one on your left side, one on your right side. Well, if you're standing, right, and if depends on where the weight is in your feet, if it's more balanced, that's Carmen there at my feet, our canine puppy. If the balance of your weight is more even from heel to toe, so kind of more like there, sorry, I'm not totally perpendicular to the camera there, but if it's more even and your hips are more directly over your knees and your ankles, then even if you have kind of tight hip flexors, and let's say you have, let me pan the camera up here, and let's say you have an anterior pelvic tilt, which may be, oh, you know, anterior pelvic tilt, lordosis, I have tight hip flexors, especially that iliopsoas muscle, but I don't feel pain here. I only feel pain when I sprint and I go into hip flexion. Well, what's happening is as you go into hip flexion, the thigh bone, the head of the femur, should move posterior towards the back of the hip socket, but if it doesn't, it'll butt up against the front of the hip socket. The femur will glide anteriorly, thus the name femoral anterior glide syndrome, and butt up against it. And so what you need to do is train that femur as you go into hip flexion, because when you're sprinting, you're usually towards your toes. Your torso is even leaning a little bit, you know, forward, and then you're bringing your legs up, right, into hip flexion. So let's go all back to, you know, grade school geometry. You're going from a more, you know, obtuse angle to a more eventually right, and then past that acute angle of flexion in your hip. So as you close that space up between your thigh and your torso, you're getting the space in between your femur, your thigh bone, and the front of your hip socket is basically impeding. It's coming into contact. And that's what it sounds like from your description, what's happening. So I recommend, like I said, going back, watching Bryce's, how I responded to Bryce, Bryce's symptoms, Bryce's answers in the Optimized Self-Test, talking about some rocking you can do, both unilateral and bilateral, to address that, getting that femur towards the back of the hip socket, also using resistance bands. I also, Derek, who I'm going to be responding to in the next question, I think he has some hip issues, and we'll get into a little bit of banded type of exercise. So stay tuned for that as well. I'd like to give you more specific advice to your unique situation, but in order to do that, I need a little bit more information to go off of, all right? So the best way to do that would be to take the Optimized Self-Test, much like Bryce did. And you can see I spend more time, because I have more information to go off of, responding to Optimized Self-Test responses. So definitely you can go to optimizeself.ninja right there, and just click the big reddish orange button underneath the video player, put your email in, and be sent a link to take the Optimized Self-Test. And basically it's a self-assessment type test. By filling it out, you'll be giving me more information so that I can help you. So you'll be basically helping me help you. Also, while you're over on optimizeself.ninja, scroll below where you click that big red orange button and look at everything that's included inside the Optimize Myself Dojo, because I think you would definitely benefit from what's found inside there. All right, and there was one other thing I just want to make sure. Let's see. Let's see. There was one thing, and I feel like, I don't know if I skipped it with Bryce, but Eric, I will definitely, no, we did talk about using the bands. Yes, I was just checking back on the show notes to make sure that I did go over that with Bryce. Is the rocking to set the thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket, and the other, I will get out if you just give me 1 second. It's not far here. If you use resistance bands like these I got from Rogue Fitness. Yeah, Rogue Fitness. I want to say this one's like 35-pound pull. This one's 50. But actually, no, this one's more. This one's like 80. This one's 50. And you can have these, and you can wrap them around your thigh. These are really popular with like Kelly Starrett's mobility wads and things like that. And you can have the other end. You can see this. This is a deal you can put in your door jamb, so that it's basically fixed to one spot in the door jamb, and you can wrap this around your leg, and you can start to mobilize your hip while having constant retraction or pulling of that femur towards the back of the hip socket. So that's another way. I'll try to remember to include some links to Rogue Fitness where you can get those bands on as well. But even just some of the rocking that I show Bryce, forward to backwards, both legs and one leg at a time, will be really helpful. All right, so start with that. Check out, I know you already saw, don't confuse hip flexor weakness for tightness. I'd be curious to know, have you already actually started to implement and use those exercises in that routine? If not, definitely do so. And also check out the short and tight versus long and taut athletic posture types. All right. And I would also appreciate it too if you found this or any of the other answers in today's episode helpful. Please like the video on YouTube. Please share it with your friends, family, coworkers, the guy on the street that always waves at you. I don't know. Share with them. I know they would really appreciate you thinking about them. I would appreciate you helping share and spread the word, not the world. You can spread the world too. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button on the Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. That way you stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going ons over on optimizeself.ninja. All right. And I think that about covers it. Eric, thank you for writing in. I look forward to seeing you either in the Optimize Self test or hopefully in the Optimize Self dojo. All right. Until then, take care and be a good human. All right. I got one more question to respond to. Let me grab some water. Get some weird lighting. Oh, well. All right. Derek, I have to say the last name, Vlasky, because I hear ski and I'm assume Polish because my wife is Polish. Anyways, Derek actually commented on the same video, don't confuse hip flexor weakness for tightness. There's kind of a theme here, right? That's why I said lower back pain, pinchy hips, and messenger hawks. But I think pinchy hips, a lot of people are having pinchy hips today. But actually this wasn't today. This is, well, let me read the comment and then I'll get to my response. Derek says, do you have a video for how to correct hip flexion? I can't get my hips forward, and that has resulted in all my lumbar discs starting to bulge. I also sit 8 hours a day, so I know that doesn't help. I've been trying to solve this back pain for 5 years now, since I was 20, but just found out a year ago that it was my hip flexors, and I just need to get them loose. Any help would be great. So Derek, first of all, I sincerely apologize for taking so long to get back to you. According to YouTube, it says that you left this comment 3 months ago. And let me just say, both to Derek and everyone else listen, occasionally a comment, a message, an email, a text, a voicemail gets past me because they're coming in from all different directions, different accounts, and I kind of have a system to make sure I get most of it, but every once in a while, one gets by me. So by all means, if you haven't heard back from me in more than 3 days, just shoot me a kind reminder and say, hey, I sent you this. Just want to make sure you got it. Because trust me, I want to respond to your questions. It's just I get a lot of them, and yeah, sometimes one or two get by me. So, Derek, I apologize, and hope you will take this answer as part of my forgiveness, or as my apology. But I digress. Anyways, yeah, I do have something for you. I would strongly recommend that you watch / read a post I did called "How Herniated Discs Are Like Peanut Butter and Jelly Sandwiches." And I know that sounds weird, but if you go watch it, and I'll include a link in the mentioned links section in the show notes, and I'll also reply to your comment with a link to that one, so you don't have to go sifting through it. If you go watch that, it'll explain to you basically, yeah, if there's too much flexion, and again, for those of you guys not aware, I'm sure Derek already is, but as you flex, as you bend forward, right, like as you close an angle up, especially with your hips, if you're in hip flexion, so that would be hip flexion, this would be hip extension, hip flexion, kind of more like fetal position. If you're in hip flexion, it's going to round your back, and that's going to cause bulging of your lumbar disc in between your vertebra. And it's much like, the reason I say it's like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches is, I'm sure we've all had this happen before. Making peanut butter jelly sandwich, you put too much jelly in, or maybe even put just enough jelly, but you squish the bread together and the jelly squishes out. Well, it's because you're pressing, if you press on this side of the sandwich and the jelly goes out that side. Same thing, if you were to press on this side, the jelly would come out that side. Well, by putting weight, biasing the weight towards the front of the disc of the vertebra this way, the discs are going to push out that way. Same thing as if you were to go back the other way. So herniated disc, at least the physics, the way that the biomechanics work, are very similar to how an overstuffed peanut butter and jelly sandwich works. So that's why I titled that video post that way. So Derek, I would definitely recommend you check out that and use the exercise routine that's found inside. Do all the exercise. I believe there's 6 or 7 of them. I think it starts with sitting knee pillow squeezes. Check this, see if I'm right. I think it's sitting knee pillow squeezes, static back knee pillow squeezes, modified floor block, static extension, upper spinal floor twist cats and dogs. Check and see. I may be off a little bit, but they're in there. There's links to video tutorials on them. Do all the exercises and do them in order, because exercise number 1 prepares your body for exercise number 2. Number 1 and 2 prepare your body for number 3, and so on and so forth. I think you get the point. But yeah, definitely start with that. Now, that said, I want to kindly remind Derek and everyone else watching that as important as posture alignment and posture alignment exercises are, they pale in comparison to the 6 other foundations of health, those being breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, and movement. Not to mention things like your environment and mindset, both of which are forever influencing things like your pain, posture, and performance. So it is very important to keep in mind that the body is a stimulus response organism that responds to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters the most. Like, for example, Derek, you mentioned sitting for 8 hours. That matters more than necessarily your best intention. So if you do the exercise routine that's laid out for you in the how herniated discs are like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that takes you half an hour, but you're sitting for 8 hours, again, 30 minutes can't offset 8 hours. Understand, it doesn't have to be a 1-to-1 ratio. You don't have to do 8 hours of exercise to offset 8 hours of sitting. Instead, when you understand and implement and use the synergistic value that is all the foundations of health, the breathing, the hydration, the sleep, the nutrition, the stress, the movement, and the exercise. And you don't have to be perfect in all of them, by all means. Lord knows I'm not. But if you're even, say, 80% and above, then it takes very little extra in terms of exercise, time and effort committed to maintain proper posture alignment and to feel good. All right. So I just don't want you, though, like I've seen time and time again, people put exercise up on a pedestal and think they can just exercise their way into proper health. Exercise is part of the recipe. It's not the entire recipe. That said, it's imperative to when you're looking to treat a symptom, whether it be herniated discs or hip pain or hip or postural issues like being stuck in hip flexion, it's imperative that you use a system that treats the whole body as an entire unit and not just in parts, that take in consideration not just the biomechanical side of the body, but also factors in the biochemical as well as environmental sides of health. So if you like what you find here and you're interested in learning more about how you can benefit from, like I mentioned previously, the synergistic power of the foundations of health and the overall optimized self system, and you're really not really willing to settle for anything less than a pain-free and active life without limitations, then I'm definitely going to encourage you to head on over to optimizeself.ninja and check out everything that's included inside the Optimized Self Dojo, because there's a lot of great stuff in it that I think you would really, really enjoy and benefit from. I would also love to give you more specific answers based on your lifestyle. The only thing other than the exercise and hip flexion part that I know is the sitting, which definitely, some things you can do to work on sitting less and moving more is, you can have a standing workstation or a treadmill workstation. You can take calls, whether they business calls or family calls, standing up or walking around, whether it be walking around inside or outside. You can also take little breaks, like challenge yourself one day this week to not sit for the entire day. You can at least sitting in a chair, an ottoman, or some type of sitting piece of furniture. You can set a computer on it if you want. You can sit, but you can only sit on the ground. So try doing that for an entire day and see how you feel. Those are a couple things you can do to, sit less and be less stagnant, instead be more dynamic and move more and be more active and walk around more. That'll go a long, long way. But I would like to know more about, again, the other foundations of health: your breathing, your hydration, your sleep, your nutrition, all that stuff. But in order to do that, what I need you to do is go over to optimizeself.ninja. Again, check out what's inside the Optimized Self Dojo. And, if you're ready to jump, both feet all in and everything, you're like, I'm ready to, to totally get rid of this pain, then I would say definitely take that route. If you just want to dip a toe in, first and get a feel for the water, so to speak, click the big red orange button underneath the video player. It'll be at the top of the page. And click on that, and a little box will pop open. Put your email in, click the Take the Optimized Self Test button, and a link to a link will be emailed to you where you can take the Optimized Self Test, and that's basically a self-assessment test. If you want to see kind of how it works and how I respond to them, just go ahead, click the timestamp or rewind to the point where I addressed Bryce earlier in this episode, and you'll see some of the questions that are asked inside the Optimized Self Test. But again, it's a self-assessment type test, and basically gives me the information I need to better help you. So you'll be helping me help you, and that's one way you can definitely get started. Thank you for commenting on YouTube. Again, apologize for taking so long to get back to you and anyone else watching. Again, if you don't hear from me within 3 days, just shoot me a short message or a text, or however you try to contact me. Send me that again. And if for whatever reason, if that doesn't work, try a different form of communication. If you're Facebook messaging for whatever reason I'm not getting back to you, believe me, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I haven't seen it, or somehow it got by me. So send me something on YouTube, or just text me at the number right there. All right. Because I definitely love hearing from everybody, and I love interacting with you guys online. And yeah, Derek, especially with the last name Voloski. If I ignored you, my wife would kill me. Come on, she's Polish. We actually spent 7 months, 7 months last year living in Poland. Absolutely love it there. Now I want some pierogies. Anyways, Derek, I will let you go. Look forward to hearing from you again, ideally inside the Optimized Self Test, and hopefully one day soon inside the Optimized Self Dojo. Please like the video if you found these answers or any other answers in the episode helpful. Please share it with your friends, family, anyone you care about. I know they would appreciate it. And if you haven't already done so, go and subscribe to the Optimized Self Ninja YouTube channel. All right. Look forward to hearing from you again. Until then, take care and be a good human. All right. That does it for the questions. We got kind of a callus day, something fun I want to share with you guys today, and then we'll close this episode up. Okay, let's see. So Cyrus responded to a challenge that I had put up on a video post I did probably a year or two ago called Correcting Common Posture Deviations, Hip/Pelvic Elevation. And I'll show you what this looks like. Let me grab it here because I want you guys to actually see this. This is pretty awesome. Here we go. So let me share that with you so you can see. So this is a video post. Some of you guys might have already seen this one. And at the bottom, I'll read you this part. I'll include a link to this so anybody can check it out. But it says, there it is. Oops, that's not so. Anyways, if you have any questions or concerns along the way, please don't hesitate to contact me. Oh, and don't forget, the first one to send me a messenger bird, hawk preferably, wins a free session. So this is back in the posture guy days. And I always say that because I always tell people, I communicate many different ways. And I said, call, text, email, smoke signal, messenger bird. And I always thought it'd be cool to get a messenger bird. I just thought it would be really awesome. And so I got to show you guys this now. Give me a second. Oops, didn't mean to take that off me. Let's just go. All right, I think this will do it. There we go. So Cyrus says, hi, Justin. Hope no one thought of this before, but I want to send you a message by bird. So here it goes. I hope it makes you smile. You guys got to see this. This is awesome.
Hi, my name is Cyrus, and I'm sending you this hawk message. I'm here to fix a hip elevation. Talk to you soon. Bye.
I thought that was pretty awesome. It maybe wasn't the hawk message, the physical one that you might have had in mind, but I think that is pretty awesome. It's awesome. It's creative. And so as a thank you, Cyrus, I will send you a link to this, and hopefully you're watching this now. And I would invite you to join the Optimize Self Dojo completely on me, free of charge. And I just wanted to share that with everybody because I appreciate people when I make certain comments like that, or I make little challenges. I think some people maybe think they're, hey, I'm trying to be funny or something. And sometimes it is, but even still, there's always truth behind certain little gestures or things I make. I've always wanted a messenger bird sent to me, preferably a hawk. And although I've still never got one physical, that's pretty damn cool. So I definitely always want to reward stuff like that. So I will be inviting Cyrus to join myself and the other dojo members inside the Optimize Self Dojo. Cyrus, thank you very much for that. Let me get off this screen share here. All right. And I think that about does it for today's show. Let me grab some water and we'll close this out. So for anyone else still hanging around, thank you very much for watching today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already taken the Optimize Self test, definitely do so. You can check it out over at optimizeself.ninja, or you can just go to optimizeself.ninja/test. If you just want to write me a quick little short question, you can text me over at 619-800-2459, or you could call and leave a voicemail question, which I could play on the show and answer your question from there. And if you're on the fence for whatever reason about joining the Optimize Self Dojo, please let me know why, because I would like to kind of talk you down onto one side of the fence there. But also, just in the last couple of days, seen a significant increase in membership signups. So with every membership that sells, the price does go up. And I guarantee you it will eventually be a recurring payment type of thing. An annual, quarterly, and monthly recurring membership will be made available. But for right now, you can get started for, I believe it's as little as $24. And I say believe because the prices are going up, and I haven't checked to see if any new ones, anybody new is joining, the price has gone up. So yeah, it's a one-time payment. There's $3,650 worth of value in it each and every year. So I would definitely recommend that you check that out and join. If you have any questions whatsoever, call me, text me, email me, message me, send me a real messenger, Hawk. Let me put it this way. Now Cyrus has stepped it up, okay? Now that one's been used. So Cyrus, if you're still watching, that was awesome. But now, if someone would want to get like a free actual thing, send me a request to join the Optimize Self Dojo with a real messenger, Hawk. If someone did that, I would totally let you in for free, no doubt about it. But no one could use the digital Hawk again because Cyrus already did that. So anyways, join the dojo. If you haven't already, please like the video and the other episodes that you find helpful. Like it helps them get ranked, helps other people find them. Speaking of helping other people, if you know anyone that can benefit from this information, or you say, hey, you should check this out and you should take the Optimize Self test, please share this episode or whatever episode you find the most helpful for that person with them on your favorite social media platform or via email. I know they would really appreciate you thinking about them. I would appreciate you helping spread the love and sharing the word. I always say world, but it's word. And last but certainly not least, please subscribe to the Optimize Self Dojo, Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. This has been a long episode. If you haven't already, that way you can stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going ons inside the Optimize Self Ninja ecosystem. All right, and still working on that support page. Hopefully get some merchandise up and running someday. But right now, if for whatever reason you feel like the one-on-one sessions, the retainers, and the dojo, none of those are good fit for you, but you like the show, you want to support the show, you can go to Optimize Self Ninja like that and just put /support, and that'll take you to a PayPal page where you can contribute however little or as much as you want. And it could be a one-time payment or it could be a recurring payment, and whatever you feel is fair. I know I speak for everyone inside the dojo and those that watch and enjoy and benefit from the Optimize Self show. We all appreciate it. Thank you very much. Every last dollar goes towards supporting the show. And yeah, for anyone who contributes, thank you. You're awesome. We really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you inside the next episode of the Optimize Self show. Until then, take care and be a good human.